Hi, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at inserting a file or the contents of a buffer into another file in Emacs, and I'll show you why this might be useful. What I'm going to do is actually create a file here. I just call it file.org. This is just an org document. And let's just pretend we want to insert our MPV config into a source block here. What you might be tempted to do is come across, open the file, mpv.config, select all the text, come across, and then paste it in like that. But there's a much better way of doing this. So if I delete this, I'll show you the easier way. We'll create a source block. We'll give it a config because it's a big file. And what we'll do is Control XI, and that says insert file. Do config mpv.config, and it's inserted the contents of the file. And that's just much easier than switching to another buffer, manually copying all the text across, and switching back and pasting it in. And of course, the issue with copying and pasting is you might not copy all the text when you're selecting it. So that's how you can easily insert the contents of a file into another file with Emacs, Control XI. So let's have another a look at something else. Let's close that and switch back to Scratch. So this is my Scratch buffer, and typically what I might use that for is gathering links. Suppose I want to download a series of links. Now this is archive.org, and these are some public domain cartoons here. And if I come across to the show all section here, what this is going to do is actually give me a list of all these files here. So I suppose I come across and, select some files I want to download. Humpty Dumpty, probably like this. I'm just going through, and then I think, oh, actually I want to save all these. So what I'd do is, I'd come to my downloads, maybe, let's go to the desktop, get a file called links or something, and then switch back to the Scratch buffer, and copy those to the clipboard, and then switch back to the other buffer and paste them in. That's a bit long-winded, and there's a much better way to do it. So let's just open the Scratch buffer there. So what you can do is run Control X XI to insert the contents of a buffer into the current file. So if I run Control X XI, there's insert buffer, gives me a list of the buffers, type Scratch, and it's inserted the contents of that buffer into this file. And that's really useful, as I said, because you may be using your Scratch buffer to grab a load of links or something, and of course the Scratch buffer isn't actually a file. It's just a temporary Scratch buffer. So being able to insert the contents of that buffer into a file is really handy, rather than copying and pasting it, because as I said, sometimes you might copy something and copy it like that by accident, paste it in, and as you can see, I've mangled the link there. So actually inserting the buffer is or the contents of another file is a much safer way to do it, because you're not going to have any issues with selecting the text. It's a lot less keyboard shortcuts. So just do Control X XI, Scratch, and there we go. So that's the two tips. First one, inserting the contents of a file. So MPV config, and to insert that file we did Control XI, npv.config, npv.config, like that. And to insert the links, I should do an example block here. Control X, XI, scratch, and we've inserted the links. That's just a couple of tips to make inserting files into other files and the contents of buffers into a file a bit easier, rather than having to switch across, juggling buffers and copying and pasting stuff. It's much safer, much quicker, and a lot less hassle. So that's all for now, and hope that helps.